Welcome to Your Strata Property, the podcast for property owners looking for reliable, accurate, and bite-sized information from an experienced and authoritative source. To access previous episodes and useful strata tips, go to www.yourstrataproperty.com.au.
Hello and welcome. I'm Amanda Farmer and this is Your Strata Property. Jen Bishop is the founder, publisher and owner of the website Interiors Addict. A former journalist and magazine editor, Jen describes herself as the original Interiors Addict, an ordinary girl with no design qualifications, just a serious love of all things decor and homewares. What she lacks in official design know-how, she makes up for with a genuine passion for her subject. The ability to write and bring to life other people's stories, and an eye for a bargain. Jen believes everyone should get joy from their home, whatever their budget and whether they rent or own. Started in 2011 as a hobby, Interiors Addict has been Jen's full-time job for more than 3 years. Last year, she started a second site, Reno Addict. Interiors Addict has around 90,000 Australian readers, almost 70,000 Facebook fans, and more than 70,000 Instagram followers. Jen is also a strata unit owner. Today, I am delighted to welcome Jen Bishop of Interiors Addict. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on the show. And of course, I've invited you on the show today to pick your brain about all things interior design.
There's nothing I like talking about more.
Great. I want to start by asking you, can you tell us, Jen, why is good interior design so critical for people living in strata apartments?
Well, I think good interior design is critical in all our homes, whether they're units or not, because I think it's all about making the best use of your home and your space and in really creating a place that really makes you happy to come home to. I think the thing with strata units is that you're often dealing with less space and you have to be a lot cleverer about making that space work for you and making sure you have the right things in that space. So, yeah, I think it's a case of having to be a bit cleverer.
Yes, definitely. And Jen, what are your top tips for styling or renovating a small space?
I think one of the biggest basics is to look at consistency in your flooring and your wall colour. So painting your entire unit the same colour is a very easy and effective quick win, really, in terms of creating the illusion of more space. You don't want to cut your space up by having different colours from room to room. It will only make it look smaller.
Yep.
And flooring as well. I think if you have the same flooring throughout your apartment, perhaps not the kitchen and the bathrooms, but if you have the same flooring throughout, that also makes a huge difference. Another thing is in units, you're often looking at open plan living, and an important thing or a good tip with that is to zone your spaces. So if you have, for example, an open plan dining living area, to use rugs to zone that area. So a big rug under your dining table and another different big rug in your living area. And a tip on rugs is go big, always buy the biggest rug you can afford. If you're not sure which rug, I'm sure it's probably the answer is the bigger one, because a mistake a lot of people make is to have a small rug and to arrange all their furniture around it. And it kind of floats there in the middle. Yeah. And it's a pet hate, I think, of every interior designer. And it will just look a lot better if you have all your furniture on it. Not even if it's just, the front legs of your sofa.
Yep.
Try and have, a rug that's big enough that you can do that.
That's a really good tip. I have to admit, I'm not the best when it comes to interior design, and I do need help. That's one of my points of confusion, I guess, when it comes to rugs, that the furniture is actually supposed to go on the rug or over the top of the rug.
And you're not alone. I think this is like a huge thing that people struggle with. It shouldn't go around. If it can be sort of at least 1 foot of that chair to be on the rug, then that will look better.
I think I'm making that mistake right now, so I'm about to go and buy a new rug. All right, so it sounds like keep it simple. I like that, painting all the one colour, so it doesn't have to be complicated. We don't have to be doing feature walls and baby blue rooms and keep it simple, hey?
As well as keeping it simple, though, I think don't feel like you have to have less things because you have a smaller space. It's often you can still have side tables and things like that, but look at more compact smaller furniture.
Yep.
And these days, so many of us live in apartments that the stores are starting to produce the smaller armchairs and everything more compact. So you can still have all the pieces that you want, but just make sure that they fit with the size of the room.
Yep. And obviously with the floors, it's very popular to rip out those old carpets and put in some form of hard flooring. And we have lots of different options these days.
Yep.
And obviously that's something to make sure your owners corporation, your strata building, your committee is on board with. And there's heaps of options when it comes to make sure that doesn't disturb the peaceful enjoyment of others in your building.
Yes, definitely worth a read of the bylaws. And there's plenty of acoustic underlays and things that you can look at there in terms of laying hard flooring.
Yep, wonderful. Okay, so Jen, can you share a story or two about a strata owner who you think has got it right when it comes to their interior design and what they did?
Yeah, absolutely. Very well-known Sydney interior designer called Greg Natali. He has recently sold his one-bedroom apartment in a prestigious building in the city. And I think, that gave everyone a chance to have a nosy at his space. And I think it was a really great case study in how to have a beautiful interior in a very small space. And I think a lot of what he did there was to make everything custom and make everything really work for him and how he wanted to use the space. Custom cabinetry, because of course storage is really important in small spaces. Yep. Custom flooring, a beautiful high-end kitchen. And I think it shows that just because you live in a unit doesn't mean that your interiors and your experience of your home can't be just as high-end and comfortable if you want it to be as someone living in a house or a larger space.
Definitely. Gee, I wish I had got a sticky beak at that place. That must have been interesting.
You can probably find it online.
Oh, good. I will do. Okay, so Jen, what are some common problems that you've noticed people face when it comes to styling or renovating their apartments, and what's your advice for overcoming those?
And this is speaking as someone who's recently renovated their bathroom in an apartment. So bathrooms in particular, in a unit, you may only have one bathroom, and that means, unfortunately, you're going to have to move out while the renos are happening, which is a massive pain, really, especially if you have kids. So my top tip for that would be to organise a holiday and have it done while you're on holiday, or at least have a couple of weeks of that time while you're going to be away anyway.
Yep.
So that's one tip. Another challenge you're always going to face is that you're probably going to need a bylaw if you're doing something like a bathroom. So start that process as early as possible, because it can take easily a couple of months for that to go through strata and through your lawyer and to get all the paperwork finalised.
Yep, definitely.
So, don't start that the month before you'd like to start, because it's not going to happen. And if you start without it, you're quite likely to get in trouble. And I think probably the biggest challenge you're going to face with renovations, especially noisy ones in an apartment building, is neighbours. And you can't do renos like that quietly, but I think you have to be aware and considerate of your neighbours.
Yep.
So ways that you can, I guess, look at making the problem, for them as small as possible is to make sure that you have professional trades on board, people that aren't going to be cowboys and make mess and annoy the neighbours. Make sure that your trades know where they're allowed to park, because there's nothing like blocking someone's garage to annoy the neighbours.
Yep,
Give you a bad name. You've got to live in the building with these people, so you really want to, not get on the wrong side of people.
I found in my experience, some people forget to tell their neighbours that they're actually going to be doing the renovations.
That was my last point that I just forgotten. Let your neighbours know. We put notes through it's a really easy thing to do. We put notes through every letterbox. You don't even have to go door to door. You can just go to all your mailboxes. And I think it's all about managing expectations. So, this is what we're doing. This is how long we expect it to take. We don't expect there to be any issues because we're using, professionals. But if you have any problems, here's my number, give me a call. And I just think that makes a massive difference.
Yes.
It just shows consideration and it manages expectations. So people know, this is going to take this long and probably going to be noisy.
And when people don't know what's happening, they imagine things and they imagine the worst, I think.
Scenario.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. And then there's a panic and then the strata manager gets called and then the lawyers get called in and
and it all can spiral into, something out of nothing.
Yeah, and it can be dealt with very easily. So that's an important one to remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jen, we've probably got some listeners who are thinking about starting a renovation or would like to improve their apartment. What actions can they take today to get started with solving their interior design issues? What's some quick wins?
Well, there's nothing better than a good declutter, I think, at the start of the process. Since living in an apartment, I have become, ruthless. I give things away, throw things out all the time, especially when you have a toddler and toys and things. So you have to really think hard about what you want in your home. And there was a famous quote from William Morris, which was something along the lines of, don't have anything in your home that you don't know to be useful or believe to be beautiful, which is just a really good starting point, I think.
Yes.
And look at when your next hard rubbish clear out is, and think about what you might be able to give away or what you don't need. I think the painting tip is a big one. I think it's just probably the easiest way to create a blank canvas for the rest of your plans, and something that's consistent and will make your space look bigger. And the third tip I would say is to invest in storage, and that could be perhaps putting some custom joinery into your apartment if you're depending how much storage you need, or investing in pieces that have storage. For example, you can get these wonderful gas lift beds. And the amount of things you can put underneath your mattress.
Yes, we bought one of those for my little 3-year-old, and it's
amazing.
Lifesaver.
That's it. So you can be really clever about your space like that. Buy pieces of furniture that incorporate storage, and always think about storage and how you can keep things organised and tidy, I guess.
Yep. Excellent. Thanks for those tips, Jen. They're good ones. All right. You're on the show. You're getting asked the book question. Jen, what books have had the greatest impact on you and why?
Well, my library of decorating books is ridiculous, but they're all essential, so they're all staying in my apartment. So Domino, this is a book which I have had it's probably one of the first decorating books I bought.
Yep.
It's by the people who used to run Domino Mag, which is an American decorating magazine. Its subtitle is A Room by Room Guide to Creating a Home That Makes You Happy, which I just love the whole ethos of that. Yeah. And it's just a great book for beginners, I guess, who are looking to make their homes nicer. It has lots of case studies of real homes, lots of tips for small spaces, take you through each room in your house and things you might be able to do. That's been a bestseller for years. So I definitely think that is a good book to buy. And I just have one more as well.
Yeah, go for it.
This book's called The Tailored Interior, and it's by Greg Natali, whose apartment I mentioned earlier. And I happened to help write that book, but, of course, that's not why I'm mentioning it. But I know this book inside out. And if you have more than a passing interest in interior design, I think this is a great book for breaking down all the elements of interior design in a really easily understandable way. So it talks about contrast, and it talks about cohesion, and it talks about colours and pattern, and it's just a really nice and full of beautiful photographs of his project.
That sounds great, because it can be something, at least I find interior design can be very overwhelming and a bit daunting and a bit, where do I start? I'm not qualified to engage in this exercise.
Yep.
Where do I start so I don't start at all? And I know personally I feel a little bit like that.
Yeah, that's the problem. But I think when you break it down, it's actually not rocket science. And if you look at it chunk by chunk, I think it makes it a lot less daunting. And, people can really have a lot of fun with this stuff. It can be really enjoyable. So it's not something to be scared of.
Thank you. I'll get stuck into that book. I'll put links to those in the show notes, and I'm sure that will help many of our listeners. Okay, Jen, before we wrap up, how do listeners find out more about you? And is there anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
I think one thing that I always like to say about interiors is that your home should be a reflection of you and the people who live in it. So not to take it too seriously. You don't want your home to be like it would be great if all our homes looked like something out of a magazine, but I think, it should be more about you, and you should want to come home at the end of the day and walk in and think, I love being home in my space. You can find out more about me on my 2 sites. So that's www.theinteriorsaddict.com and www.renoaddict.com. And I'm easily found on Instagram and Facebook. And
excellent. And I know you've got great articles, and you've got a weekly newsletter for each of those. And I know I'm often on there. going down the rabbit warren of reading about bathroom renovations and art and colour, and I love those websites. So
plenty of inspiration on there.
Yeah, I encourage our listeners to go and check those out. So thank you so much for your time coming on the show today, Jen.
Pleasure.
And we're actually filming this as well, and I can see in the background you have an absolutely beautiful home.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Your Strata Property, the podcast which consistently delivers to property owners reliable and accurate information about their strata property. You can access all the information below this episode via the show notes at www.yourstrataproperty.com.au. You can also ask questions in the comments section, which Amanda will answer in her upcoming episodes. How can Amanda help you today?